Good afternoon, dear parents and community of HES Academies. Welcome to another family engagement broadcast. And please help me welcome with me in the studio Hala Malla from Access. Welcome, Hala.
Thank you for having me.
Hala is a health educator with the Access Substance Abuse Program Community Coalition. She graduated from Wayne State University with her master's in social work. She has experience working with individuals and communities and is focused on empowering others through education. Today's topic is about social media habits and uh, how do we balance the use of social media, a very important topic. Let me see by a show of hands if you would like to have an Arabic translation for this program. Please leave us a comment in the comment section right now. All right. Without further ado, we're going to start with Hala's presentation, and afterwards, I'm going to announce the winners of the student government elections at Universal Learning Academy, Star International Academy, and Universal Academy for the 2021-2022 school year.
So hi everyone, and thank you for that introduction. And today I will be talking about social media balance and, the effects of too much social media, especially for teens, for children. And also, I'm going to be talking about the social media challenges and how they're impacting the community, how they're affecting the schools, and also how we can protect children and teens from them. And also for the children and teenagers watching today, how you can protect yourself from them as well. And this is just to look over all the different things I'll be covering. So social media, there are benefits to it, but there are also harms. And then how you can set a balance, how you can set limits, ones that work for you, for your family. And then also internet or the social media challenges, the kinds of dangers they're bringing, what are they, and then how we can protect children and teenagers from them. And of course, access, we love to leave everyone with resources, things that you can use right away after watching this presentation. So hopefully we'll also be looking at some resources that can help. But before we begin, I invite everyone watching to think about some of the technologies, some of the media that you had around when you were growing up. So think about, what did this technology look like? Where did you use it? How often did you use it? And, how available was it? Was it something you had to leave the house for? Or did you already have that technology available anywhere you went? So just think about that a little bit. And if we think back a little bit, there were some technology, some entertainment or media that you usually didn't have in the house. It wasn't in every room. It wasn't easy to access at any time. And you definitely couldn't take something like an arcade game with you to school or in the car, nothing that large. So usually for this kind of media, we had to leave the house. We had to pay for it to play each turn. And also these places, arcades, wherever they were available, these buildings closed at some time. So you couldn't access this technology easily. You also had a limit already set for you. It's either when you ran out of coins or quarters or when the place closed. So this wasn't something you can access right away, and it wasn't something you could access for too long. And then if we think just a bit more, media technology started to get a bit more portable or accessible. So this meant you could have this in the home and you didn't really have to leave the house to play something on a system like this. But the issue still, I would say, was that not every home had more than one TV. So usually there was a TV in the living room, and that was it. So if you were a child and you wanted to play on this gaming system, there was going to be a limit set for you because usually one TV in the house, others needed to watch TV. So you couldn't really stay on this system for too long either. And you probably couldn't take this with you on the go or in the classroom, you couldn't really hide this kind of system because usually had to be plugged into something else. And then things started to get a bit more portable. You could hide this a little more often. You didn't maybe have to wait your turn to play on something like a Game Boy or something more portable, more handheld. And so the limits for this kind of started getting a bit more relaxed. You didn't have to leave the house, you didn't have to pay per turn, and then also you didn't have to wait for your turn. If someone was watching TV, that's okay, you can just play on this. Then things started to get more interactive and meant to hold your attention for longer. And this also meant around this time there was probably more than one TV in the house, and you could play on gaming systems like this a lot more often and for a lot longer because the games were getting more interactive, more technical, and things like that. And then this brings us to what we almost all of us seem to have, at least one in each household, but I'm sure a lot more than just one. And these are a technology like no other. They're meant to hold your attention for very long. They can be hidden easily. They're portable. There are more than one use for them. It's not just to play a game, but it's a camera. It's something you use to study, something you use to connect with other people, video chatting, phone calling, you name it. So there's so many uses for this technology here that it's almost replaced all others. And with this technology and entertainment, there's also social media. And these can be accessed mostly by a smartphone. Not too many would use, younger generation especially wouldn't use a computer too often for these. It's going to be on these smartphones. And this is going to be the focus for today. So social media and then finding that balance for it. And adolescents, teenagers, children using social media isn't something that's completely bad. So before you want to take away their phone or before the adolescents and children watching this family engagement podcast, before you want to get rid of your social media, of course, it's not completely bad for you. It's not all bad. And, there are good benefits for this. You can connect with friends, you connect with family. It keeps you really entertained. It keeps you up to date on what's going on around you. You're being informed, especially with important topics that are happening in the community, around the world. And you can have all this information right at your hands. It also does help broaden that sense of community. So especially for adolescents, and that community, that feeling of being part of some sort of community has been really helped by social media. So for example, let's say an adolescent connect with others online because they're part of a certain community of people who play video games or people who love reading. And you can find these different communities of people online that can really help you stay connected and communicate with others and speak to others about topics that interest you. And with that, it also does enhance that creative thinking. You're able to create artwork. You're able to use digital artwork. You can create writing and creating almost anything and really expressing that creativity. So that's been helped also by social media. A lot of video creators, video content creators, and things like that. And also it does foster or help create that sense of identity. Again, with your creative thinking, with that sense of community, you can find what kind of interests you have. And it really does help strengthen that sense of identity through that. And it can help with learning. It can be a great study tool. Social media, there's a lot of websites out there on social media or people who post content on social media that's actually educational. They can teach about history. They can teach about different skills, different academic skills. So there is a lot of good content out there that can really be helpful. And because it's being used through social media, it can catch the attention of adolescents for a lot longer. And then with social media too, there is that increased access to information. And of course, it can be fun. It can be interesting. It can be very entertaining. And that's what it's created for. They create the social media, these companies create it because they want your attention. They want to grab your attention and keep it. And they will constantly update things daily just to make sure your attention is being kept. So we can't really say that it isn't entertaining, it isn't fun to use. And of course, it can be a great way to relax after a long day or anything like that. But of course, that's within limits. Using social media for what it's intended to within limits, there aren't too many dangers that could happen. But it's when we, go beyond those limits or don't have healthy boundaries, healthy limits set for us, that's where a lot of harms can happen. So the main one is it can be distracting to be on social media. So this is for all family members and focusing on the youth, especially for these. It can be distracting, and this could get in the way of your schooling if you have homework to do, or maybe sometimes students are in class and they're going to be on social media a lot more, and that could be really distracting them from learning the important information. And it also can interfere with what is labeled here as developmentally critical activities. So that's also socializing with your friends, with your peers, with your classmates, even family members. When you're using social media too much and it's getting in the way of that socializing, that's where these harms can then happen. And again, also the harms that come with being distracting to your learning. There's also this pressure that we kind of see on social media. Not too many of us are aware of this pressure. It's kind of this unspoken pressure, but it's there. We can't deny that it's there. And this is the pressure to make your life look like it's perfect. Because you'll see now the rise of what's called social media influencers. And these are people who post content that's almost perfect. And it's also not realistic. So usually they'll have posts that show the illusion of being very wealthy. They're usually younger people. So having that much money, being that successful with these posts, it's not something that's too common or realistic. And they'll also have the perfect homes or the perfect they'll do makeup or change their appearance to appear to what is referred to as this level of perfection. And it's not the typical things you see. It's not the average things you see. You don't really see that around with normal everyday people. These are like the rare exceptions. And everything again on social media, you don't really get that full image of people's lives. So they're only showing you a little bit of their lives. They're making it look perfect. And when we see that kind of stuff, that kind of content, we might start to have these, well-being issues. We'll have emotional well-being issues or insecurities, or maybe feeling like we can't be like these people. And that can really affect us whether we know it or not. Just by seeing that, you'll start to compare yourself more. And there's a lot of dangers that can come with that. So we start trying to live a life and post content that isn't really who we are, changing ourselves to try to match that image. And that can really create a lot of trouble, within ourselves. And then there's also something called the internet challenges, and I will talk a bit more about that further on. And then there's also, again, the emotional well-being problems and also the problems with physical well-being. So if we're spending too much time on social media, that could lead to sleep disturbances. We could be staying up a lot later than we should just to go on our phones. You lose track of time and realize it's very late and you have to get to school the next day. So that can really interrupt our sleeping if we don't have that healthy limit. And if we're getting a lot of content that's violent, that could lead us to have more aggressive behavior, especially with the adolescents and children. And it could lead to maybe social isolation if we are choosing to go on our phones a lot more than being around others. And of course, it could interfere with family life. So that also is connected to socializing. And then social media can bring something called red flag feelings. And these are the feelings that come with what I just discussed about social media influencers and seeing posts online that maybe make us feel we have to be perfect. Or it could just be, adolescents seeing pictures and posts from their friends, their classmates, their peers. They could be seeing posts that would make them feel left out of all that fun that's going on. So this picture is a example picture. It's from a online example. It's an online game you can play, and it kind of teaches you all the different ways that social media can have different effects on adolescents. So they have a sample post here, and it shows, friends hanging out, and a caption that says hanging out at the mall. So an adolescent who wasn't invited to this outing could look at this, and let's say that's their friends. They'll look at this picture of their friends, and they'll start to feel left out. They'll start to feel like their friends are living a life that's more exciting than them, and that could lead them to feel sad, nervous, worried, anxious, anything like that. And when teens, adolescents are feeling this way, that could be something called a red flag feeling. It's anything that makes you uncomfortable, anything that has that heavy impact on you. So social media can really increase these different feelings, these red flag feelings. And when it's happening over and over again daily, several times a day from different posts, that's really going to affect your well-being, your mental health, your emotional health. And that's something that you really need to limit. You need to set that healthy boundary for it so you're not constantly being exposed to that. There's also the risk that comes with excessive social media use, and that's oversharing. So again, this picture is a sample picture from that online activity. And basically, when teens and children using social media have those red flag feelings, again, those feelings that are uncomfortable, that are upsetting, they may be tempted to start sharing how they're feeling on social media. And then that's what leads to that risk of oversharing. That's the issue here. And oversharing would be giving too much information about something. So, with this example, the person posted a sad picture, and the caption is really sad, saying, you know who your real friends are now just because I'm not invited to something. So, any kind of oversharing would be information that when they look back on it later on, it could make them feel embarrassed or, shy, or they regret posting that. It might have too much information that others don't really need to be knowing. So anything like that can be oversharing. And oversharing is also a problem because not only can it make the person posting this feel embarrassed, it can also hurt the peers, the friends you have on social media. So friends might see that kind of post and they'll start to feel bad, or some people might use certain information against the adolescent posting this kind of content. So if they're oversharing stuff and people they don't really trust see this kind of information, they could really use that against them to bully them, to make them feel ashamed even more. So there's a lot of problems that can come from oversharing on social media. And so if you're wondering, for the adolescents watching this and for the parents watching this, if you want to prevent this from happening, whenever you start to feel those red flag feelings, any kind of things that might lead you to overshare, you can stop yourself and understand that it might feel good in the moment, but it's not really going to do you any benefit to post something like that. So taking a break, logging off, doing something else, and you can really stop and think about, what am I feeling right now, and try to work through it in a healthier way instead of distracting yourself and just oversharing something that isn't really going to be beneficial in the long run. So those are some of the issues that can happen with excessive social media use. Again, it's going to interrupt your daily life, your relationships, socializing, your learning, and it can also lead to actions online that may be used against you later on. So oversharing, and it can really impact you because you'll start to feel a lot of these negative feelings more often from social media. So now we look at setting a balance and setting limits for this and how you can do that. One really great way to build healthy social media habits would be reducing the notifications, especially for specific social media applications or apps. And this can be done by going to certain apps. So for this example, it's Instagram, one of the social media apps, and you can limit the notifications you get just by going in the settings and then turning off all notifications for that app. So that's a great way you can control now the notifications you receive, how many you receive, and really you get to control then how many times do you look at your phone. So you're not being, your behavior isn't being ruled by, every time a notification pops up, you have to click it and see what's going on. Now it's on your own time. You can choose to set time apart to look at the notifications after school, when you're done with your homework, or when you're done doing the important things in your life. And many people prefer to limit the notifications for certain apps because you don't want to turn off all notifications on your phone, just in case you have notifications like phone calls or messages that are important for that day. And you don't want to, stop all the notifications. So you can do this for every social media app. You get to decide what notifications you receive. And this can really help start building those healthy social media habits. Also, for smartphones, you can set it to do not disturb. So maybe setting it before bed, having time without your phone. You can stop all calls from coming in or certain calls from coming in, certain text messages, unless, certain people you need to answer. And also for your social media applications too. Or maybe you have time set aside to do your homework. So for adolescents and the children, you have homework to do, and you can set right here like a personal time or a work time. Maybe you're at school. You can really stop notifications at certain times of the day. And that really helps limit, again, the amount of time you spend checking your phone. And then there's also time limits that can be set for certain apps. So I know with iPhones, and I'm sure this would also be for any Android phones as well, there is the ability to set time limits on certain apps. And then you can also track how much time you're spending on each app. So that can also help you see, am I using too much of a certain app? Is my child using too much of a certain app? And then checking that, and you can set an automatic limit. And that can, be a really good way to kind of remind yourself to wake yourself up and stop using the app for that day. And for, this kind of balance, it's really focusing on something called screen time. So this doesn't mostly apply to any time that's educational, that's productive. This would be mostly screen time for entertainment, on social media, for games, anything that doesn't really need you to be on the phone. So we understand that sometimes you have to be on the phone, maybe for schoolwork or some sort of website you need for school. And then that doesn't really fall under that limit of screen time and needing to balance that. It's mostly for any of the other things using it that aren't going to be too beneficial, that aren't educational or helpful. It's usually stuff for entertainment. So any kind of social media for entertainment or videos for entertainment, that would fall under the screen time that should be balanced. And that's where you should be building those healthy habits around. And then this is directed to any of the adults watching this too. And this is to help with setting limits for adolescents using social media. So modeling healthy media use and balance yourself. Not stopping you from using social media, but when you're around the adolescent, to not use the phone or social media too much around them. To also show that you follow the online rules of posting. You're not oversharing. Maybe you're not looking at content that's going to make you have those red flag feelings, comparing your life to other people, and then also have alternatives there. So having activities that the whole family enjoys. These kinds of strategies can really help with setting those limits. So having activities the adolescents will enjoy, the children will enjoy, you'll enjoy, and that doesn't really require using a phone, a screen, or social media. So anything that you can think of to spend time with each other and have fun. There's also monitoring, and I would really recommend that having a direct conversation with your adolescent and actively monitoring their social media use is going to be a lot more beneficial than digitally monitoring them, especially without their knowledge, without their permission, almost spying on them. That's not something that's going to be too beneficial. So it'd be best to have those conversations, set your expectations, asking them how often are you using social media, what are you using it for, maybe what kind of content do you see? Do you always see others that you feel you compare yourself to? Do you see posts that make you feel left out? Anything like that, really. Just understanding, what are they spending a lot of their time consuming? And also, you can set a budget for how much social media use can be used during the weekday, can be used on the weekends. So, having a few hours each day, maybe a few hours more on the weekends. But after that, it's kind of that limit that you can speak. And then also, it could be beneficial for a media diary to be used, or just writing down the amount of time spent on social media, or tracking that on the phone. So seeing the screen time each day and kind of giving, starting to allow the adolescents to think a bit more about how much time are they spending on social media and letting them be aware of it. Because maybe they'll lose track of time and not understand that, wow, I've been on my phone for almost 7 hours today. They can really be aware of it more, and that'll encourage them to want to set their own limits too. And these are also, I know some questions might come up about how much time can we or should we be allowing our children to use social media or to use screen time. And again, screen time being things that aren't educational, just things meant for entertainment. So these are guidelines set by the American Academy of Pediatrics. And these are helpful guidelines. They're not going to be perfect for every single family, for every single child. And all these strategies and tips I'm giving today, they might not be perfect for you, but you can kind of use them to see, okay, what could be a better fit for our family, for our child, and everything like that. So for any infant, those are under the age of 2 years old, it's recommended to have 0 hours of screen time, except if it's this educational content. So videos that teach children or teach infants colors, alphabet, anything like that. That is an exception that's allowed. And it's best to have it viewed where there's an adult around them, just in case an advertisement pops up. It might be a scary advertisement. You just want to make sure you're aware of what children are watching. And then also for children 2 to 5 years old, they recommend no more than 1 hour of non-educational screen time per weekday, no more than 3 hours per weekend day of non-educational content. And then again, educational content could be an exception. And this might not be a perfect fit for you, so you can modify that just a little bit. And then for children 6 and older, including teenagers, there isn't a recommended time. So this would be the time where you can start encouraging healthy habits, having that conversation, setting your own expectations in the family. I know a lot of people like to use tablet time, or how much time can you spend on the phone, and things like that. Just speaking about it, so you let the child know that's my expectation, and that's how much you're allowed to use. And also, just wanting to again limit any activities that include screens. So if they don't need to be on the screen, try not to have that screen around. And then this is where I'll be talking about the social media challenges. So this was something we added in a bit later on when we knew we were going to present. And this is something that has been affecting the community a lot. We can see it in the schools, we can see it at home, and it's just something that's making, a big impact on teenagers and children. And social media challenges, they've been around for a long time. And if you can remember, I remember hearing a bit more about, like, in 2009, there were challenges on the internet, popping up, and they were all over the news because of their harms. And that was back when social media was around, but it wasn't as popular as it is now. So you can kind of think of it this way, is that these kinds of concepts, social media challenges, have been around in different forms. It's just now it's a different platform. So now we have TikTok, we have Instagram, and these kinds of apps have made it a lot more popular. And also social media challenges began to be a lot more popular during the COVID-19 pandemic, when everyone was at home, they were indoors, they were feeling bored and isolated. So social media use went up, and these challenges went up too. and they became a lot more popular during that time. And what are social media challenges? So social media challenges would be these posts or kind of people telling others to do a certain thing, to make a certain post, or to record a certain action and then post it on social media with everyone. So, for example, the first one was called the Vogue Challenge, and this was where people who weren't models, they just took a picture and then made it look like they were on the cover of a Vogue magazine. So challenges like this have a more positive intention behind them. And this was because this challenge showed everyone that these magazines should have more diversity in them. They should include people who look like, the people you see in your everyday life. And that had a good message behind it. There was also another challenge called Tip the Bill. And this was also meant to have a more positive intention, positive message behind it. And it's where people gave waitresses and waiters a really generous tip. And at the end of their meal, people were almost putting thousands of dollars as a tip. So that was something that had other challenges that really just meant for entertainment, and they have very little harm to them. And this was called the Until Tomorrow Challenge. And this is where people posted, let's say, an embarrassing baby picture or a picture that was unflattering of them. They posted it on their social media, and they had to keep it on for 24 hours before deleting it. And this also wasn't really too harmful. It didn't have any negative impact behind it. And a lot of celebrities were doing these challenges, so that also leads to that popularity or being used a lot more often. And then we want to understand also what's their appeal. What makes adolescents, teenagers, children, want to take part in these social media challenges? Because we can tell that we've been seeing them a lot now in the community. So what's attracting them to these challenges? The first side is really all about the biology and the psychology of adolescents. So their brains are still developing, and the reward system has been developing before the prefrontal cortex. And then that's the part responsible for the rational thinking, thinking things through, thinking about something before making that decision. And so when the reward system is developed before that, they're going to want to seek or take part in more rewarding behavior and not really thinking it through just because that's, the way they're developing right now. So they're more prone or more likely to take part in behavior that's rewarding, especially socially. And they're also going to be more attracted to any kind of behavior that's thrilling, a thrill seek. And they're also focused on those immediate rewards of taking part in something rather than thinking about what's the risk of doing this? What's that long term effect? What will happen if I do the social media challenge? That's not really what most adolescents are thinking. And then what also makes social media challenges very appealing would be the celebrity involvement again. So when celebrities are doing these challenges, so celebrities are people we usually see often. They're usually trustworthy. They're usually used to be that, familiar face. And when they're doing a certain behavior, it's more likely that people will follow along with them just because. And then again, it's a risky behavior. There's also peer pressure and that fear of missing out. Adolescents don't want to feel left out. They want to do what others are doing, especially their peers. And they're also wanting to have that social world connectedness. So being connected to others on that social media platform. Maybe if they go back to school the next day, everyone's talking about a social media challenge. A lot of adolescents don't want to be left out of that. They want to take part in that and to also just feel like they're a part of something. And social media rewards bold behavior. And we know adolescents are already prone to rewarding behavior. And social media definitely rewards any kind of behavior that's risky or bold. And that's usually what the dangerous social media challenges have. And social media rewards that behavior because there's a like button, there are comments, people can get a lot of views on certain videos, and anything like that, that popularity online, it's going to reward that kind of behavior. And we can see a lot of content that's more risky or risk taking is going to grow in popularity over those more meaningful videos or those more positive message videos. And that's just, people are more attracted to those kinds of videos, those kinds of content. They will share any kind of videos that are reckless a lot quicker than ones that are more positive or motivating. And there are the dangers, again, of these social media challenges. A few of them listed here. So there was the cinnamon challenge that was popular way before just these current times now with these current apps. And this had people eating a spoonful of ground cinnamon in under a minute. And again, this had with it health risks. It's very dangerous to be doing those kinds of challenges. But again, it grew in popularity. A lot of people were doing these challenges. There was also the blackout challenge, and this was popular. The one that I heard on the news in about 2009, and this was very dangerous. People holding their breath, and that's leading to fatal outcomes there. So that's not something we want, adolescents doing. But again, it was risk taking, it was thrilling, and that's what really had that appeal to it. And again, there was the challenge with laundry detergent, again, just dangerous health effects for that. And it got very popular just because it was so absurd, it was so risky and thrilling, and that got spread very quickly all over social media, and it fueled these kinds of challenges. And then we've also been seeing the devious licks challenge that's been very prominent, very popular, unfortunately. And this again involved taking items from schools, stealing items, water fountains, anything like that. And these kinds of social media posts were rewarding this terrible behavior and making it popular. People saw, if someone posted this kind of content, they were becoming very popular on social media. They were becoming popular in class. People perceived them as being cool, which is untrue. And that is what also motivates that behavior. It's that risky behavior, again, being encouraged just because of comments and views and popularity. So these can be dangerous to the adolescents doing them, to their peers. Others can get hurt by this. It's going to impact the school, the family, the community. And it's all because of that perceived idea of being popular or being very well liked on social media for doing these kinds of things. So now you know a bit more about what are the social media challenges. I know many of you already had a good understanding about them. And you also now understand, some of the different ways they're happening, and then why are adolescents taking part in them. So it's not their fault, again, it's just the way it's set up, the rewarding behavior, the way social media spreads this kind of content. And the best thing we can do is not really, try to be harsh towards the adolescents. We just want to help as much as we can. So this is different way you can protect adolescents from these social media challenges. And the number one way would be to spend time online together. You can teach your child, especially if they're at a young age, about appropriate online behavior. It might seem like something you don't really need to be talking about, but trust me, it goes a long way. It's very helpful. Even if you think your child already knows about this, it doesn't hurt to talk more about it. So teaching them appropriate behavior, not oversharing information, not spending too much time on social media. Another appropriate behavior would be if you see this kind of content, social media challenges, harmful kinds of videos, that they shouldn't be doing these kinds of things or sharing these kinds of posts. So that way they're not becoming very popular, unfortunately, and others won't be tempted to take part in them. So it can start with your child, and hopefully other children too can start to learn that this kind of material isn't entertaining. It shouldn't be shared, and it's really more harmful than it is entertaining. And then also keeping, if it's a computer they like to use, keeping it in an area where everyone is in, trying to, you can at least monitor the use. They're making sure they're not on the computer too much, and also not having it in a separate room, especially not the bedroom. And again, a lot more adolescents prefer smartphones over computers. So if they are using their smartphone, to make sure that they're not really sitting alone too much, you can still monitor how often are they staying on the phone, what kind of material are they seeing? Are they seeing a lot of these social media challenges and things like that? And then monitoring any of the time that's spent on a smartphone or a tablet. So you can use the different ways I talked about, setting limits on notifications, setting the phone to do not disturb, setting a budget during the weekdays, during the weekend, setting those family rules and expectations, and then also speaking about your expectations. And then also checking your credit card, your phone bills for any kind of unfamiliar account charges. Maybe your child might be purchasing some sort of material online or anything like that that could be connected to these social media challenges or certain social media accounts. Just seeing anything that looks unfamiliar or might look suspicious to you. And then finding out if there's any kind of online protection that's offered in the schools, at any community centers, after school centers, any of the friends' homes, or anywhere that your child could be using a smartphone or a computer without any supervision. So are there any online content blockers, any child protection blockers for that? And then also take your child seriously. If they report any kind of online exchanges that made them feel uncomfortable, maybe they are seeing too much of these social media challenges, and maybe they don't feel too comfortable with what they're viewing, and they don't want to be exposed to this kind of content. So just take them seriously if they come to you, share anything with you, and not to really punish them just for that. So you want to keep that open conversation with them. And then also looking how to protect youth from specifically these social media challenges. And the best way would be for these healthy friendships. You want to really make sure they have a sense of belonging, that they're not too vulnerable, especially to seek that sense of connection. So if you feel, your child isn't really spending time with others, they're not spending too much time with their peers, they don't have too many close friends that they trust or that they enjoy spending time with, to not let that go unnoticed. It would be best to maybe speak to them a bit, to see, what are their friendships like? What are their classmates like? And if they're more socially isolated, if they don't have too many good friends, healthy friendships, they might be more vulnerable to try to seek that connection online. So that might also lead them to potentially unhealthy peers, these content on social media. They might also depend too much on social media for that connection, and that could again bring with it the harms, no healthy boundaries, overusing social media, and everything like that. And you want to just again engage in conversation, to be calm, no judgment. They're going to continue to grow and learn, and you're going to be right beside them. And especially for the adolescents watching this, you can turn to an adult you trust and to your family, and just speak about these things that you might be seeing online, and to really learn good evaluation skills, good risk evaluation skills. And these will help you see, is this social media challenge something that I should be taking part in? Or what's that effect that's going to happen from it later on? What's the harm that's going to come from it later on? And again, these are the resources, and these are very helpful resources. So the first one being NetLingo. And this can really be helpful for adults who may not know too much about social media, especially like any slang words or any kind of pop culture terms and anything like that. And the reason I started off with this resource is because it's really important for parents to learn about social media, learn what are the trends, learn what's popular out there. So that way you're better able to help your child if they are using social media too much, or you can better track what they're doing, what content they're viewing, and it can just really help you have those conversations again, if you feel your child needs that healthy limit, that healthy balance. And noslang.com is also part of that kind of research. It's similar to NetLingo, and it translates all the different slang or online acronyms. That way, you can just educate yourself, and you'll be able to better help your adolescent, your child. There's also netsmarts.org, and this is a online safety education program. This is really directed to children and teens more than the adults, and it just teaches online smart use, safety tips, not oversharing, how to handle different red flag feelings if you're seeing content and it makes you upset. This is a better way to handle those feelings instead of doing things online that you'll regret later. And then the final but most important resource is Parent Further. And this has tools, different resources, links to different websites you can use to help you when you're having these conversations with your children, helping them stay responsible online in their daily lives, and also to help them, remain emotionally and physically healthy with the increased use of social media that we have. So we can't avoid the social media, we can't avoid viewing these challenges, but we can limit it. We can have those tools, the strengths, the healthy habits we need in order to protect ourselves and protect the adolescents and children as much as possible. And so social media might continue to grow, expand. The harms will continue to expand, but we'll have adolescents who are stronger than that, who have the tools they need, and they're well equipped to handle it. And time for any questions and anything else. So thank you everyone for watching.
Thank you, Hala, for this very valuable presentation. For teenagers, one of the slides you spoke about how for children over 5 years old, it is really something that um, is not determined exactly how many hours. But what would you say would be a healthy limit
Mm-hmm.
of social media use or screen time
Yeah.
for children uh, between the age of 5 and 13?
I would definitely say educational content that's beneficial to them. Sometimes schoolwork. I know the Zoom calls. So that kind of content, that can't really be limited. Um, it's used as much as needed. But to know an exact limit, I would say for that screen time that's non-educational, anytime you see the child is becoming affected by it, if their emotions are feeling off or they're feeling a lot more tired or if they're spending too much time on screen time on that phone, on that tablet, to understand then that's when that limit should start happening. So if they're spending, let's say, 7 hours a day, to reduce that as much as possible, I would recommend maybe for educational time no more than 3 hours, let's say. And that's like the highest limit, maybe on the weekends. During the school day, school week, 2 hours as maximum. Because if we think about it, they're spending time at school. By the time they get home, they have homework, they need to spend time with family, caring for themselves. There's not too much time left in the day. So limiting that to 2 hours maximum of non educational screen time, that is a good starting point. It'll be different for each child, each family. But that's like a good starting point, I say.
I wish that there is a source for educational YouTube channels, for
Mm.
example. I know that all this user generated content is not something that is possible for organizations to sponsor because there's no control
Mm.
over the accuracy or the rating of the content. So it might change
Mm.
from one time to another. But nevertheless, there are YouTube channels, user created for different ages, that is healthier than others, that
Mm.
is more educational than others. Just takes a little bit of effort to find them and try to expose our children to a sense
Mm.
uh, YouTube is one of the major media outlets that the children are spending a lot of time on.
Mhm.
Um, so thank you again for the presentation. I have a few announcements to make. First of all, you received a memo from our superintendent, Dr. Ali Bazzi, about the upcoming parent-teacher conferences, which will be held virtually. You will receive communication from the principals that will basically tell you what kind of platform or the scheduling mechanism, so you can schedule the sessions with the teachers virtually. And please, parents, know that you can always meet with the teachers virtually before the conferences, after the conferences. You don't have to wait for the conferences to wait and get a feel of how your child is doing in school. You also should be connected to the PowerSchool application, the PowerSchool Parent Portal. If you don't have access to that, then please just go to, actually, I have a special link for you that I am going to post right now in the chat. And this link tree, this short link will give you all what you need to connect to the parent portal, the PowerSchool parent portal. Also, you can connect with the teachers through Class Dojo, through the emails of the teachers, and through Remind, or any other tool that the teacher is using to communicate with the parents. So here is a little video reminder of that memo from the superintendent. So that was the message basically about the parent-teacher conferences coming up on Thursday and Friday, November 18 and 19. They're going to be done virtually per scheduling. Each principal of each building will share with you the details for that. And also, I want to congratulate Sally Al-Hamas from Start National Academy for winning the elections as the president of the student government for 2021-2022. She insisted to include her cat in the photo, so we didn't mind. Right, Hala? Doesn't seem harmful. Um, Noor Dagher, congratulations. Also, you were away few votes. I think 4 or 5 votes from Sally Al-Hamas. You came as second, and that tells you the importance of voting and how important each vote counts. Student government is a practice in school for how real life happens, and the same thing happens in real elections. Few votes can make a difference. Practice your democracy by voting. So again, congratulations, Sally Al-Hamas, and your next step will be forming your executive committee. You will receive communication about that. And at Universal Academy, Ahmed Thabit, congratulations for winning the election with a landslide. And at Universal Learning Academy, Zahra Al Aboudi, again, congratulations for winning the elections and being elected by the student body as the president of the student government at Universal Learning Academy for 2021 and 2022. Thank you everyone for watching with us. This program will be recorded. If you feel that anyone can benefit from this message that has been shared by Hala, through Access. Please do share it with them through the links on YouTube or Facebook. Thank you, Access, for continuing providing these programs for the community, and we'll see you in the next family engagement broadcast. Thank you, Hala, again.
Thank you. Goodbye.
HES Academies have been serving the Detroit metro area for over 23 years, promoting academic excellence, leadership, and cultural diversity, ranking as some of the top schools in the state of Michigan. Our pre-K through 12th grade students enjoy tuition-free, state-accredited education by STEM-certified and highly qualified staff with no geographical restrictions, and with advanced placement, college dual enrollment, scholarship, and Arabic language programs. Noor International Academy in Sterling Heights at niapsa.org, Star International Academy in Dearborn Heights and in Canton at starpsa.org, Universal Academy in Detroit at universalpsa.org, and Universal Learning Academy in Westland at ulapsa.org. Join HES Academies today and enjoy a free Chromebook for every enrolled student.